So I will start that again,
Mhm.
probably, yeah, maybe this fall, just to help people,
Yes.
give them information. Then I usually have like one-on-one communication with people. So you book
Yes.
an appointment, and then I have one-on-one communication with you. So a personal.
Hello and greetings, Dr. Aina. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, as you know, on this podcast, we talk about personal finance, investing, and career insights. I am very much excited to have Dr. Aina, who is a professor, a holder of PhD. He worked in Nigeria as a lecturer, and he has been teaching in Canada. And he will tell us more about that, and he will be starting his role in the US. Dr. Aina is a very interesting man of many talents. He is a computational physicist, right? And he completed a PhD at the University of British Columbia here in Canada. So I'm excited to welcome you. Do you care to tell us, as brief as you can, your academic journey all the way from Nigeria and to Canada?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Uh, yeah, just very briefly, I completed my bachelor's degree at the University of Lagos in Nigeria, and was fortunate to be invited back to start an academic career after I completed my 1 year mandatory service to the nation.
Mhm.
So I was there, and the only condition that I had then was to start my graduate studies, and was given 6 years to complete my PhD. So I
Okay.
started my master's at the University of Lagos, but I was not contented with that. Like, I was not satisfied with just that level of education. So I was aiming to, if I'm going to do a PhD, then I should try to obtain a world-class education. So I started looking for opportunities abroad, and um, I got admitted to the to Memorial University in Newfoundland. So that's
Mm.
at the eastern part of Canada. So I completed my master's degree there in biophysics, and I loved it. So I decided to pursue a PhD afterwards. So I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. Uh,
That
so
is, you moved to BC to the
yes,
University
I
of
moved.
British
I moved
Columbia.
to the British Columbia.
Mm.
So, and that was where I did my PhD. It was an interesting time, and so that was the time I met you
Yes,
with other Mastercard scholars.
yes,
Uh, and afterwards, after completing my PhD, or during my PhD, I had the
yes,
opportunity also to work with a biotech company. So,
yes,
in a kind of, there are two or three positions that I had in the period of 4 years, but
yes,
mainly as a consultant. Um, so I can talk more about that later. But after I
yes.
completed my PhD, I've worked as a college professor
Hmm.
at Okanagan College. It's in the interior part of British Columbia. But as of this fall, I will be an assistant professor at California State University in Carson, California.
Congratulations on that. You know, it's not easy. You tell us more about the whole process, the recruitment process, right? If
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
mind.
thank you. Yeah, that's just briefly my
Yes,
journey, and we can explore more different aspect of that.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting because if someone is in Africa or Asia or any part of the world, they might be wondering, how can I become a professor? Do you care to explain to us like, the whole process of becoming to get to a point where now you're an assistant professor in the various ranks and files,
Mhm.
and the process, the interviewing process for you to land that opportunity in the Invest of California.
Yeah, that's a good question. And there are many people, as at the age of, let me say, about 16, I
Yes.
developed, for many different reasons, I developed, interest in education. And I know many people are also in the same situation. So to become a professor, the first step is essentially to get a PhD. So after completing your bachelor's degree, you try
Yes.
to get your PhD, either doing a master's first, or commonly in the US, you can go directly from a bachelor's degree to doing your
Mm,
PhD. So after
mm,
your PhD, it is common that people do what we call postdoctoral studies. So,
mm.
meaning, so there's a large understanding in the community, in the academic community, that even if you complete a PhD,
It's not enough.
that you are not ready to do an independent research. So,
Wow.
which is to me ridiculous,
Yes.
because my understanding is that the purpose of a PhD is to develop you to be an independent researcher.
Yes.
But I think the reason why this is popular is because there are now more PhDs being produced by the universities than the available jobs.
Mm.
So there are many people looking for the same academic job. So they just create something temporary
Yes.
as postdoctoral study. So usually you have to go through that. I don't subscribe to it, and I did not do that. So,
Yes.
and if we have time, I can tell you
Yeah, please go
what
ahead.
I did instead, or what you should
Yes.
do instead. While you are doing your postdoctoral studies, so you begin to look for assistant professor jobs. So, and this usually follows like an academic calendar. So, if you want to start a job like next year, September, fall term, then this fall, so 1 year before you start your job,
Mm.
you have to do the application. So it
Hmm.
follows like the academic calendar. So, and you then have to compete, and the competition is very fierce. Uh,
Wow.
so sometimes, I've shared with you before, like at
Yes.
University of British Columbia, the year I was graduating, there was an opening
Yes.
for an assistant professor job, and just a single opening, and more than 400 applicants.
Qualified applicants.
Yes, that submitted application. So the application process is fierce. There are many documents they ask for. Generally, they will ask for your academic CV, curriculum vitae. They will ask you to write a research statement. They will ask you to write a teaching statement. These days, they ask you to write what we call a DEI statement, diversity statement, and other things. They can ask you for your teaching dossier, what we call teaching dossier. So in your teaching dossier, you're going to tell them about your teaching philosophy.
Mm.
You are going to give them your prior teaching assessments or evaluations, things like that. So there's a quite of things that they ask you for, and generally, uh, this will probably take you about, let's say, between 50 and 100 hours to come up with an application,
Wow.
a complete application. But after that, submitting application to other advertisement will be easier, because you just modify what you
Give a
already have.
template.
Yeah, you have a template. But that first template will take you about 50 to 100 hours to put together. So you submit like that, and you compete. So generally, there is a first step of what we call screening, so which is a Zoom interview. So out of, say, the 400, 200, or 400, the
Yes.
universities would like to take about 10 of them.
Mm.
So they go through whatever criteria they set before the advertisement, and then they select about 10 candidates. And
Wow.
these 10 candidates will go through the first interview, which is these days Zoom interview. And from there, from the Zoom interviews, they will select about three candidates, and they invite those three to the campus. And
Wow.
so you come and do what they call on-site interview.
Yes.
Yeah, and this on-site interview will take a whole day, uh, between 1 to 3 days. So on
Yes.
campus, and it's going to be full days. So you meet with almost every professor in the department. You meet with the dean. You will meet with students. You meet with every
Mm.
stakeholder possible,
Mm.
and you go you go back home. So they are going to select one person from these three, and you wait. So it's either you going to receive the
Good
unfortunate.
news.
Unfortunately, we don't we unfortunately we went for the candidate that is best suited for the position, or the
Congratulations.
congratulations, you've been selected. So that's the way it goes. And
I'm
yeah,
curious though.
yeah. What do you say?
Dr. Aina, I'm curious though, is this the same process that you would you would one would go through in Nigeria or in other experiences, or this is kind of like the North American experience because it's gruesome, right? I know
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
was
yeah.
at UBC, like I discussed with you before, we would read some professors, they would come to present. So presumably now it was after the shortlist,
Yes.
the Zoom interview now when they meet with different stakeholders. So they would present and then we would rate them like, what do you think about this? And then we would also pass on our comments.
Yes. So that's the input from the students, the assessment. So
Okay.
each professor will also do their assessment, and the candidate will meet for like 15 to 20 minutes, all the professors and the dean and uh, others like that. So that's yeah, to your question as to if this is a global thing. So yeah, this is generally the experience globally, but different countries have different kind of cadre system. So
Okay.
In North America, there are three steps in the
Mm.
professorial cadre. So,
Mhm.
which is if you are coming in as a professor, you start as an assistant professor,
Yeah.
and then within 6 years, you have to prove yourself to to obtain promotion and to obtain what we call tenure. So tenure
Okay.
is essentially kind of you get a permanent job and you cannot
Okay.
just be fired for no reason.
Yes.
So and after another about 6 years, you can become a full professor. So those are the three levels that
Mm-hmm.
you have in North America generally. But other places like in Nigeria or in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
you have different kind of levels. Generally, they have more than three.
Okay.
So there's something common in the UK system, or even in Nigeria or West Africa. They have
Okay.
lecturer, like
Yes.
lecturer, and then they have junior lecturer, senior lecturer. They have what we call they have senior lecturer. They have um, associate professor.
Okay.
So in Nigeria, it's about 7 levels,
Okay.
but it takes shorter time to move from one level to the other.
Okay.
Generally, 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
uh, so because there are lower levels that you can enter in, for example, the Nigerian system,
Mm-hmm.
also enter. You can also enter with your masters as a lecturer, for example.
Yes. Oh, now it makes sense.
Or you can enter
Mm.
with just having a PhD
Okay.
without a postdoctoral study. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So, congratulations again.
Yeah.
It's a tall order to actually, be even selected
Yeah.
to
That's
be an assistant professor. And
yeah.
now, I'm curious now from your experience now because you moved from Nigeria to Canada to Newfoundland. What was your experience? now in terms of adjusting with the new environment when you came here? Did you have any challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I had when I moved from Nigeria to Newfoundland, it was actually the weather. It was it
Okay.
was a big change for me. And it wasn't that maybe Newfoundland was that cold, but it was really windy. It
Okay.
was really windy there. And actually, I made up my mind the first day I got there that I was going to leave this place.
Okay.
But I had to spend 2 years there because of my study. So one big thing that I had to adjust to was the weather. It was
Hmm.
very windy, and in
Yes.
some period of the years it was also very cold. And even more annoying is that you have to just put up with a lot of downpour of snow for a long period of time.
Yes. Yes.
3 4 months, there's just downpour of snow, and it was just annoying, and everywhere we become messy. And so that was kind of the only challenge that I had. I met incredible people in Newfoundland.
Hmm.
They have great sense of community, unlike many of the big cities. Very great
Yes.
sense of community. Um, I attended a church there that I think is still the best church I ever attended. Just so good. And
Hmm.
yeah, I enjoyed my time in Newfoundland, but it was the weather that made me to come to the West Coast. Uh,
Oh,
no, I was just looking for where is the best weather in Canada. I
and
don't,
that's
yeah,
that's nothing, no way except in British Columbia. And I was going to ask you because a lot of people would say, "How do I finance my studies?" That's the big challenge because I know when I did my graduate studies, I got up to 200,000 in academic grants. So I was very lucky. So, what other funding mechanisms, like for your studies, do you care to share how you were funded, or how was the
yeah,
process
that's
like?
that's a really good question. So it turns out that like in Nigeria, we're very lucky that the government, for example, pays for the federal government. If you get into
Hmm.
federal school, then the government will pay your tuition, something like that.
Mm.
So
Really?
in North America, if you want to go to college or even and graduate school, you have to fund it yourself. So and it's very expensive. It's even
Yes.
expensive for people that are here. So there are two things. It's either you have the money to pay for the expensive school fees and living expenses, or you have to look for funding, grants.
Okay.
And one reason that I chose to come to Canada was I love the funding system for graduate students.
Hmm.
So if you come to Canada, for example, for graduate studies, uh, there are two main routes. You can either do a course-based program, which
Hmm.
generally tailored towards professional careers.
Yes.
So you
That's
have to
what
pay
I
for,
did for my first master's degree in food and resource economics. And I remember the tuition fees were like 31,000 at that time. The
yeah,
last time I checked, it's almost now 50,000. That is just the tuition fees in
yeah,
1 year. And
yeah,
then if you add the other expenses like living expenses, so it's easily almost $100,000
yeah, yeah,
Canadian
yeah.
dollars, which is like
So
75,000
yeah,
US dollars in 1 year. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Only 31% of the people who tune in to watch this podcast, they are subscribed. So I want to encourage you to please subscribe so that this content can reach far and wide. Thank you again, and may the markets be with you.
yeah. So if you want to do a course-based program like that, you have to pay yourself. But if you do a research-based program, which most of the sciences have, and
Yes.
so you have an opportunity to be funded
Yes.
because of that. So what this means is that this is very competitive because many people
Hmm.
want that. But why I like the Canadian system is generally you just have to compete for the admission. So once you get the admission, you get the funding automatically.
Automatically.
So that's one thing that that you have to do. So yeah, for me, I was also lucky that I got the admission. So and it was because of this that I got funded. So once
Yes.
you get into the system, you can get additional funding because there are many other opportunities that you can
Yes.
apply. There are many other funding competition that you can apply to, and you can win
Yes.
those fundings.
And my supervisor, Dr. Sumaila, when I was doing my second master's degree, one thing that he shared that was profound was that, as a professor, a principal investigator, some funders from the industry would come and
Mm.
say, we want you to do this research on this project, and then they can then hire a student, right?
Yeah.
So what it means, maybe let's say they want a research project, so then they'll say, okay, maybe the funding is 200,000 to do
Mm.
this research, and then maybe then it can be staggered for for the years, right? If it meets the minimum funding. And then what it means is you are basically working as a research assistant and you can do teaching assistant. But out of that, there could be then maybe 25%, as an example, goes towards administration because you may need the working space, you may need desk or all these other things for you to, office space as well. So it's kind of like a small business. So most professors, what they do, as I'm sure you would do, is you apply for grants and then hire students to actually work on specific projects. So it's kind of like entrepreneurial. That's what it is. There's a lot of funding in research and there are different tiers. I'm not going to go into that, but I just wanted to say there are quite a number of funding options. In addition, as a Canadian citizen, there are some fundings that are interest free as a student, right? Because
Mm.
what they do is you get you get
Some
funding
loan.
from the federal and I think also from the provincial government. There are
Mm.
also some funding, and then they actually give you first 6 months after you graduate. You don't you're not expected to pay, right? And it's even good because it's interest free, some of them, but there are also some other private loans. I
Mm.
know some folks, some colleagues from Nigeria who were doing Master of Business Administration at Soda Business School at the University of British Columbia. They were telling me that they got some private loans. So those are some of the options to explore. You did some work to help mostly folks from the developing world who want scholarship. Do you care to share more about that, Dr. Aina? Like, are you still doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think yes. So you're referring to I think about well maybe 2 3 years ago.
Yes.
Usually there's this one of the problem that people have, especially back in maybe Africa or the Middle East, is just lack of information or lack of
Mhm.
people to put you know just access to information.
Yes.
So I
So
will start that
then
again. I started like
probably,
a it
yeah,
was just
maybe this
like
fall,
just to help
like
people
a platform
Yes.
where I
give
can
them
offer
information.
some
Then I
information
usually
about
have
how
like
to come to
one-on-one
Canada to study and
communication
how
with
to get
people. So you
funding.
Yes.
So
book an
this was
appointment, and then
basically
I
my goal.
have
And then
one-on-one
I was also
communication with
open
you.
to, helping
Personal,
people
a
proofread
personally
their
tailored
statement
Is
of
it
purpose
paid?
for their
Yeah,
graduate
without
what?
a shame.
No,
Is
application.
no.
it
So I
paid?
was doing
No,
that,
Okay.
but
it wasn't
since I
paid.
completed my PhD,
But
there has been a
there's
cost with
a,
that. But you
I
have to
was
You've
just
been
give me
trying
super
to,
busy.
permission
yeah, super
to
busy and
post
trying
our
to just
conversation
sift through
Mm.
online.
I was going
Okay.
through this, this
So
So that
interviewing
others can
process,
learn.
but I removed any
Brutal.
personal
and then you have to
information
travel and
like
you have to,
name
so things like
or
that.
anything that
Yeah.
is personal.
Okay.
So it was a free conversation, but then I posted them on many post podcast platforms and even
Hmm.
some on YouTube.
You
So
have a YouTube channel, right?
yes, and I think it was yes, I have a YouTube channel in my name. So, but the
Okay.
platform was I think Canada Grad School. That was the name of the
Yes.
platform. So if you
Mhm.
just Google it, you will
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I'm planning to resume. So I called it community service. That
Community
was what I
service.
called it. Yeah.
Yes.
So I believe I'm going to start that again.
I will put the website, your YouTube channel, so that viewers
Yeah.
can also access that. Because for me, I know when I got the scholarship to come to Canada,
Mm.
It was through a friend who actually shared with me the opportunity. I had no clue that there was the MasterCard Foundation scholarship. So for me, this is kind of a very important and personal thing to say, I want to help as many people to build bridges for others to also cross, uh, you know, from wherever their situation through education. But there has to be some work in it because a lot of people who reach out to me, they say, "Oh, can I send you my certificate so that you can apply for me?" I'm like, "Well, I can't do that. I can either review your statements, your motivation statement. After you have written your own story, I had to write my own story. And you have to spend some time and take it as a project. You make sure you meet the deadlines. You have references. It's quite serious because it's competitive, like we have alluded to. I
Mm.
know when I came at UBC, as you know, Dr. Aina, we were the first five uh, graduate students from the whole of Africa, right?
Mm.
So what it means is all the applicants from the African continent, they are vying for five spots, and they
Yeah.
just have to select five at that time. So what it means is your application has to be outstanding in a way,
Mm.
and a lot of times people may overlook the impact of volunteering on that. Like if you are volunteering, maybe volunteering at a church or something like that. Now, having discussed about your career path, Dr. Aina, thank you so much for sharing that. Do you care to share about your experience with personal finance and investing? Did you have any experiences with, credit cards, stories that you'd like to share, and also even mortgages? What has been your experiences on that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I think the only advice I have with maybe credit cards is just or the monetary system in general.
Yes.
When you so this is particularly to people who are not used to the North American system.
Hmm.
So back in Africa, we don't really have access to credit,
Yeah,
and
maybe except South Africa.
yeah, yeah. And then when you come here and you have so much access to credit, you can easily abuse it if you don't understand it. So
Yes.
my first advice is, just step back a little bit and try to understand the system
Mm.
before you start, messing everything up because there's a great responsibility in using credit. And
Yes.
so when you come over, make sure you understand, read a little bit, study a little bit about the monetary system. So,
Hmm.
including using credit cards, mortgages, and all of that. I think
Hmm.
that's was just what I'm going to say. And
Hmm.
from my personal experience, the way I use credit cards for many, many years was, I don't actually buy anything that I don't have real actual money for.
Hmm.
So even if I use my credit card, almost immediately I transfer the money back to to pay for the
We pay it
for
off.
the
Hmm.
credit. So and it's good. And in fact, I was very extreme when I first got to Canada because I didn't when I opened my bank account, they offered me credit card and I said I don't need it. So, but it took a situation whereby I wanted to pay for, I think it was a conference online, and they were insisting that I pay with a credit card. So it was at that point that I went to open the credit card. So and it's good. It's good to have a credit card because there will be some situation where you actually need the credit history. So for example, if you want to get a mortgage,
Yes.
this is something that you will not have. You will not, for example, in our Vancouver,
Yes.
you will it's highly unlikely that you have 2 million naira, sorry, 2 million
Canadian.
dollars
Yeah.
somewhere that you are going to use to pay for a house. So
Yeah.
we have to get you have to get a credit for that. So
Yeah.
and your credit history will be important there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Dr. Aina, because how it works in Canada, they usually give a 5-year term upon which you can then renew. But the first thing that they do is they check your credit history to say, are you someone who is consistently paying off, your what you owe, right? Or are you utilizing everything that that is on your credit card if it is 1,000. So you must always be careful. Usually they recommend like you use 30%, you pay it off every month. So
Mm.
that can then increase your credit rating. But the
Mm.
good thing is with a good credit history, you can get lower interests, which can save, some money. So it's very, very important because I was also kind of like, well, do I need a credit card? Then you realize like a house, a two-bedroom apartment here in Canada, in British Columbia or in Surrey, you're looking at 600,000. So how many people can have that amount of cash to pay? So you
Yeah.
can have, 20%, that is maybe 120,000. And then there are other associated costs, right? And then you get the difference from the bank. So
Yeah.
that's when it matters. So that's something to have in mind there. Now, is there anything that you like to share with us in as we are about to wrap up? And I'm so excited about your future, your upcoming. Are you
Yeah.
excited?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think my general advice is just to young people that might be listening to this, is just try to don't give up on your aspirations.
Mm,
You never know what the future holds. So just keep keep pursuing your dream, and yeah, work hard, and hopefully you get the luck that you need to get to where you would like to be. So that's what I would say.
yes. And
Yeah.
I think I would say as a follow-up, is there any particular reason why you studied in Canada and then decided to go and work in the US? It's
Yeah,
something that I just started.
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Mhm,
So it turns out that so during the last year of my PhD,
mhm,
I started looking for job opportunities.
mhm.
And for a whole year, I did believe it or not, I did hundreds of interviews. In the last year of my PhD, I did hundreds of interviews. In fact, there are companies that I did 6 stages of interviews,
Wow.
just a single
Wow.
company. And what I noticed was, and 95% of these interviews, they came from the US.
Oh, okay.
They came from the US. So I would say like 95% of the opportunities that I had,
In
uh,
your sector.
they were in my sector. Yeah, they were in the US, and I wanted to work in the biotech industry. So so towards the end of my so after I completed my PhD,
Mhm.
uh, I mean, I got to some final interviews, but I never got any offers. So, and my explanation to that was a couple of things. One, when I was doing these interviews, I'd not completed my PhD. And since most of these interviews were with US companies, I was in Canada. So again, there's there is I was not, you know, competitive enough with candidates that would be on ground in the US. So for example,
Yes.
so that's just, and by the time I finished my PhD, I was not, because of that experience, a lot of interviews, and with no single success, I was very reluctant to continue that, especially because that I was not, I already had a family. So
Yeah.
because of financial constraints, I didn't have a lot of leverage to just stick to that.
Yes.
So I changed a little bit, even though that was not what I wanted to do, because I already had the perception that if I wanted to go to academia, I would need to do postdoctoral
Postdoc.
study
Hmm.
to be competitive.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that. I
Okay.
didn't see myself investing another 3, 5 years before I can then have a chance
Yeah.
to compete for a 5% chance of getting an academic job. So I didn't want to
Yes.
do that.
Mm.
So, but I started applying for academic jobs with my PhD.
Yes.
And I got, within 2 months, I got a temporary position as a college professor.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as I was doing that,
Mm-hmm.
I started applying for more permanent positions.
Sorry
Again, most of the, yeah,
sorry to nudge you there.
yeah,
So I what I get here is that now that you had secured a job at the college,
yeah,
it did ward off financial pressure. So now you were now looking for jobs without any pressure because you already had a job with the
something,
college.
yeah,
So
yeah,
now you kind of like, if I get it, that's fine. If I
yeah,
don't,
yeah,
I
yes.
already have something
Something,
financially.
yeah, yeah. So there was less pressure, especially
Hmm.
financial pressure.
Hmm.
So I had something, even though it was
Yes.
temporary. So, but
Yes.
I had something. So now I was then seeking for a more permanent position. And one thing that I actually experienced while applying to industry jobs, it was just annoying. You are not even sure if they are going to fill the position because you interview for some jobs, you do 5 rounds, and within the next week, you can see they advertising the same job again on
Mm.
LinkedIn or this thing. So you don't know. And some of the job they keep advertising it for like 6 months.
Yes.
So I was not confident. An academic job, if an academic job is advertised,
Yes.
most of the time, 99% of the time, it
It
will be filled by
gets
somebody.
filled. Yes.
But it seems in the industry there's a lot of what they call ghost jobs now,
Mm.
where people just advertise jobs. You don't really know if they're going to fill it or not.
Okay.
But because searching for job, applying for jobs is really a very tasking, endeavor.
Yeah, it
Very
is.
tasking. So I couldn't even focus applying to industry and academia. I just focus on because when I was applying to industry, I focused on the industry
Mm-hmm.
for like more than a year. And then now I started focusing on academic jobs.
Mm.
So I applied to about 40 universities. So and yeah.
Wow.
So again, it was just uh out of these 40, it was just about three in Canada. So most
Yeah.
of the universities are also in the US.
So were you invited for interviews, Dr. Aina,
Yes.
for out of all the 40, what was like the success rate? Like how many, if you do recall, how many schools invited you for interviews?
So first round, I got about
Wow, that's
eight
pretty good.
interviews. Yes. And then for the on-campus interview, two of them. I did two on-campus
Wow.
interviews.
And the other one was a
But
regret.
what?
The other one was a regret, or you,
Yes, and I got one offer.
wow,
Yeah.
wow.
So it's very and I would
Hmm.
say that this actually surprises me because that's good.
Yes, it's
It's not it's
actually,
not
yes,
it's not and I like to let people know, especially new PhD, to know like the numbers. Like
yes,
it's
statistics.
like so for an academic job, it's like you have less than 5% chance of success. That's just the truth about it. So
Mhm. So, what are some key things that you say, I would say, were outstanding in your case? I know you published work in some reputable journals. Did
mhm.
it really count for you, like in those interviews? Did they ask, like, or they actually see on your CV that you have published, you have done community? What were those outstanding things?
Yes. So I think in my experience, because it turns out both in my industry job search and academic job search, it turns out that I actually receive a lot of invitations,
Yes.
interview invitations. So, and in my opinion, this is due to you have to be able to find a way to present yourself. So no one is going to tell your story for you. You have
Yes.
to be able to present yourself in the best possible ways.
How do you go
So,
about it in your
so,
case?
so, and in one way to do that, especially for the industry jobs, is that you not only state, for example, the places that you've worked and the duties that you are supposed to carry out in those work, but more importantly, you must state like the value that you contributed on your
Mm,
CV.
okay.
What did you contribute? So you spend this year, you are supposed to do this, but what did you do? What value did you bring? In
Yeah,
terms of
maybe
money,
10%
yes,
pass
exactly.
rate
So
in
you think
students
yes, exactly.
or what?
In
Okay.
terms of efficiency, so time to
Mm.
do things, for example, or in terms of monetary value, what did you
Mm.
contribute? What amount of money did you generate for your organization? Things like that.
Mm.
So that is very important. And make sure also that the jobs that you are applying to, they are actually relevant to your
Good
experience.
fit. Yeah.
Yes, good fit.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's like you are just throwing your applications into black holes. That's
And
that's
there are also softwares, right? That just, match algorithms that just match, in some cases, reportedly, they just match, word for word. Like sometimes if you don't include those
keywords.
words, it doesn't pass through that.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that, and then so that even before anybody sees you, that is
Mhm.
the only way you can convince people who are reading the CVs to invite you for the first interview.
Yeah, you bring value.
That's the so it is the paper.
Mm.
So even with the paper, even if you lie in the paper, nobody's going to know, but you are going to get to the first interview. But the reason
Mm.
you should not lie in the paper is
Yes.
because you will then do an in-person interview, right? You are going to do
Yes.
an actual interview. So, and
Hmm.
if you lie in that your CV, that's where they're going to catch you, because now
Yeah.
you are going to defend what is in your
On your
CV
CV.
when they see you. So that's why make sure you have a good CV that presents the value you can bring to that
Hmm.
specific position.
Hmm.
Then you will get selected. Although again, don't put all the burden on your own to say on yourself to say, oh, or don't put all the blame on yourself to say, oh, I didn't get the interview because I did not do that. Because many times it's not because of the applicant, it's just because it's competitive.
Okay.
So if there are 100 people that are qualified for the same position, they
Yes.
cannot invite all the 100. So
Okay.
in that case, it's not the applicant, it's just the position is competitive.
Maybe they just did a random sampling to say,
Yes.
okay, we these
So
people, so we are just going to
that's
pick
right.
using a
And
dice
and and many times,
rank.
even with all the selection criteria, the selection is not much better than a random sampling
Yeah.
because
Okay.
many of the candidates are qualified. So,
Anyways. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Only 31% of the people who tune in to watch this podcast, they are subscribed. So I want to encourage you to please subscribe so that this content can reach far and wide. Thank you again, and may the markets be with you.
so you just try your best. And then what I also noticed, so you were asking me about why do you think I was successful. So I
Mm-hmm.
also think when you get the opportunity for that first interview,
Yeah.
you cannot afford to mess up. Try to
Yes.
prepare, try to
Okay.
prepare for it. But it is understandable that many candidates, because at some point many candidates will be discouraged because you've seen this before. When you get an interview, you've seen
Yeah.
it before that many times, many times you've done this and it
Yeah.
was not successful. I've
Yeah.
done this like 40 times and it was not successful. What gives me the assurance
Rejection
that
is
this
never
one,
easy, Dr. Aina, even for me, right?
yeah. So
In
so
life.
what gives me so when they invite you for this interview now, you feel like, okay, what gives me because it happened to me, what gives me the assurance that this is going to.
Work out.
And one of the reasons is because once they invite you for an interview, you have to prepare. It
Yeah.
takes time from what you're supposed to be doing, what else you are supposed to be doing.
Yes. Opportunity
So,
cost of time.
yeah, yeah. So because of that, you might find candidates that don't prepare when they get an interview opportunity. They don't prepare as they are supposed to for the interview. So, but you cannot afford to do that.
Yes.
Once you get an interview, because it's very rare to get an interview.
Mm.
So once you get it, you have to give it. You have to give it. For example, once I get an academic interview for an academic job,
Yes.
takes I just cancel 1 week. It takes me 1 week
To prepare.
to prepare. Yes,
Mm.
like I just canceled everything that I'm doing.
Clear your
to
schedule.
prepare. Yeah, I just clean my schedule to prepare for it, especially the on campus interview,
Mm,
where you have to prepare for a research talk and you have to prepare for a teaching session.
mm.
So, and you just have to ace it. Like
Yeah.
you have to show that you can do the job, and you have to show some charisma. Like
Yes.
you have to blow people away. Like, yes, I am the one you should choose. You just have to
Yes.
do that.
You have to
So
sell yourself. You have to
yes, you
market,
have to sell yourself. So you cannot
Mm,
afford to. So I yeah, that's what I did. And many
mhm,
times it's not just your qualification. It's not because you have 5,000 citations or you have 20 publications. It's not just that.
mm.
Many people, so all of that might be more important when they are selecting the CVs.
Okay.
Once you go past that, people will not judge you by that again. Like they want to see how do you fit this role. Like they want to
Okay.
see you, like they are going to communicate with you. They are going to see you teaching a class. They're going to see you presenting a research talk.
Then
So,
how do you
yes,
relate with the students, with the
how do
fellow
you relate to the
professors,
students? Things like that. So,
colleagues?
by that time, nobody is thinking about, oh, this guy has 5,000 citations. Nobody cares.
Mm,
So, all of that will have gone into selecting you from using the CV, right? From the
hmm.
pile of, yeah. So at that time, you have to show some charisma and some performance. You have to do some,
Interesting.
yeah. So,
Interesting.
mm,
So, yeah, because one thing that I also learned, I have been at some point, right now I've kind of put a pause,
mm,
but I'm kind of like getting interviews here and there for the federal jobs here in Canada.
mhm,
But at some point I got rejections, but what I learned was that I had to reach out to say, oh, can you give me feedback? And I actually found it very helpful because some of the things they mentioned, like, in Canada for the provincial jobs, they give you a questionnaire to say, answer this. Can you demonstrate if you have done research or policy analyst jobs?
mm,
So I actually realized that, oh, actually, I was not putting as much effort on that because what they do is they want you to put more information to demonstrate that you are actually a good fit. And
mhm.
remember, these jobs, they are very competitive because they have a
Yeah,
lot of benefits.
yeah.
So I realized that it was not about me as a person per se. Of
Mm,
course, there could be that perception, but so it's very important to put in some work, when
yeah.
you do this, and they were very generous. We did some calls, and then even on policy briefs, something that I took out was that when you do the policy briefs for, those government jobs, you're supposed to then put some recommendations in the end,
Mhm.
right? And it
Yeah,
was it wasn't something that I was aware. So I was like, oh, I actually learned from getting feedback. So
yeah,
that's something that I've also learned in life, that sometimes it's helpful not to personalize things if you get rejections, because
yeah, yeah.
very well there might be something, maybe some other people with the superior qualifications,
Yes.
with much better presentation skills.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you invest in learning and getting feedback, you can always be a better person the next time, because you
yeah,
can then incorporate that other
yeah,
feedback. So I
yeah.
thought I would share this. Is there anything in conclusion that you would want to share with us? And I think I will be definitely keeping an eye on you, because you're a very interesting person in
Yeah,
that you like to share some insights, on your LinkedIn and social media platforms. So that's very helpful, honestly,
yeah, that's
because
right. When
yeah,
I have, yeah, sometimes when I have, yeah, when I'm idling, I just like yeah, to rant a little bit on
some
LinkedIn.
of us we read, we learn from you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it's like, oh, your experiences, are very interesting, because, sometimes, you fail, sometimes, you learn like this works better.
yeah.
So you then
And
share.
most of the things I say, they are actually from my experience.
Yeah,
It's easier to write those things when you actually have the experience
exactly.
because yeah, you can relate to what.
to what you are saying, and
Yes.
it's just easy to say it. So yeah, what I would say is just yeah, people should keep trying. The job market right now, whether industry or academic, is really not good. Like
Stuff.
it's really tough. So you have to just keep the belief. Try to find my real advice, which is how I approached it when I was looking for job.
Yeah.
Try to just find something that will be bringing in just as much as you need to sustain your life, right?
Mm.
So it might be a manual job,
Yes.
for
To pay
example.
for the bills, to keep the lights
Yeah,
on.
yes, because if you don't have that, you are going to be you will
Desperate.
just be you will feel miserable, and you will not be able to prepare for you will not be able to prepare for your interviews
Yes.
like as you should. So I
Yes.
would say just find something that can pay the bills. It might
Yes.
be the most menial job possible, but I mean, you don't have any choice, and uh,
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. And I think for me, it's a job is a job as long as you're doing things legally and you are not stealing. And I
Yeah.
think for me, there's honor in, working hard,
Yes, yes.
and,
Honor in
doing
labor.
something and adding value to something. I
Yeah.
don't really mind, like for me, I've done all sorts of legal jobs. Like I worked in a warehouse. I've
Mm.
worked in healthcare jobs. And throughout the whole process, I was learning a lot,
Yes.
about, how the funding comes from provincial, federal. And there are actually, if you're an entrepreneur, you can actually learn and then maybe in the future start something. So
Yes.
it's it's a very important aspect issue that
Yeah.
you raised to say some people will say, "Oh, I'm not gonna do this job. I'm not gonna do this." As long as it's legal for me, I I don't really mind. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, and I really appreciate
Pleasure.
the privilege of your time. And
Yeah.
to the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any comments and questions to Dr. Aina, I will put the links to his LinkedIn profile so that you can reach out and connect with him. He's a very um, open person. Like, you can also learn from his story, some of the stuff that he shares. And thank you so much. And may the markets be with you. And I wish you the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.